And welcome back to Joe's Knows College Football. This one's going to be our playoff edition for the two games coming up on New Year's Day. We are here with Matt Freeman, Will Kukowski, Zay Liu, and me, Jack Hellman. We have a special guest today. One of the teams in the playoffs is Texas, and we have a former St. Joe's Media. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame for St. Joe's Media. Current student at Texas, Saketh Gadori. Welcome back, Saketh.
What up? How y'all doing?
Before we get into that Texas game, we're gonna start off with the Rose Bowl. The number 4 Alabama Crimson Tide gonna verse Michigan, the number 1 team in the country. Matt, you can go first.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one for me personally, being an Ohio State fan. Obviously, the Wolverines knocked my Buckeyes out, and Alabama, just not the biggest fan. They're not a very likable team due to all their success for all of us growing up. I'm actually going to go with Alabama here. I think they're playing on a mission. I think Milroe has been a completely different player from the beginning of the season to now. J.J. McCarthy, I'm just not convinced he can get the job done against an elite defense in a big moment. Like, you see how the Ohio State game went. McCarthy did not look sharp by any means. He's not the guy that's going to be able to go win you a ball game. And if you look at Milroe, he made some incredible plays down the stretch. Granted, it was Auburn. He won them that game on some miracle. He played fantastic against Georgia and got the job done against what was the number 1 team in the country. So I'm going to go with Alabama just because I believe that their leader, Milroe, is better than Michigan's leader, McCarthy. So I'm going to take Alabama.
Yeah, Jack. And if you look back at this game, you're looking back at Michigan and the teams that they've faced so far. On paper, Michigan should blow out Alabama. Their wins that they have, their profile that they've put together, they are deserving of the number 1 team. But you also have to remember the starting quarterback of the year, Tyler Buchanan, transferred to Notre Dame to play lacrosse. I mean, Alabama was not figured out at the start of the year. And Jalen Milroe had a lot of work to do coming into this offense. And work is what he's done. I mean, Michigan is going to have, as you said, a really tough time against the secondary. The only real weapon I see them having is A.J. Barner in this game. And I think Caleb Downs is going to have – I think he's going to have a pretty easy job taking care of him. He handled Brock Bowers real well, only had 2 receptions when in coverage against him. I think this Alabama secondary will hold up against Michigan real well. And finally, a fully healthy offense is what Alabama's not had this entire season. Coming into this game with a month of rest, I think Alabama doesn't just win this game. I think they do it in a pretty easy fashion. I think they put up a decent score, and I think they run by Michigan here, and they take the national championship.
I mean, I'm going to have the same thing. Definitely going to have Alabama in this game. Jalen Milroe, I feel like he's just such a big factor through the running game and his improved passing game through the entire season. It's just amazing to see. And on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, the running game with Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum for Michigan will be stopped by Dallas Turner, in my opinion, and the rest of the guys stacking the box on this Alabama team. And, Michigan doesn't usually like to pass the ball, but if they do, it will be stopped by Kool-Aid McKinstry, Caleb Downs, and Terrion Arnold, and that's exactly why I'm going to be taking this Alabama team.
Scott.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with everyone else as well. I mean, there's like a reason that Michigan had such a bad reaction when they found out they were going to be playing Alabama. It's because they know that that's the one team they don't match up well against. I mean, both teams have stellar defenses, so it's going to come down to which quarterback plays better. And Cam Newton put it really well when he was talking about Dak Prescott versus a guy like Lamar Jackson. There's game changers and there's game managers. And J.J. McCarthy is a game manager, whereas Jalen Milroe is going to make, big changes for this Alabama team, and he's going to be able to lead them to victory. Starting with the run, he's able to break apart the defenses in a way that Michigan can't. So I see Alabama jumping ahead of them in terms of scoring, and I feel like their offense is going to be way more dynamic. So, yeah, I'm going to take Alabama as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be taking Alabama as well. I just think they have just way too many more strengths than Michigan. They have better pass blocking, better passing, better pass rush, and all coverage defense. Of course, Michigan's run game is one of the best in the country, but Currently, Alabama's ranked 6 on PFF in run defense, so I still think Nick Saban is going to exploit all their weaknesses. I think Jalen Milroe is going to have a great game, and in my opinion, this might be a crazy take, but I think this Michigan team might be better with John Harbaugh not on the sideline. They were playing more inspired when he wasn't on the sideline against Penn State, against Ohio State. They were playing way more inspired, way more passion. The other games with them, it was kind of like a dead team. They just kind of played like how they should. But when they played Ohio State and Penn State, they were a whole different squad. But we're gonna send over to a question to Zay. Who do you really think is the X factor in this game?
I mean, definitely Jalen Milroe. Just his ability to throw on the run, his ability to direct his receivers downfield, his ability to get out of the pocket, just make plays entirely for this Alabama offense.
Yeah, then Matt, if Michigan does lose this game, can we see a downfall from the program? Of course, that head coach is going to go through a lot of allegations and other stuff.
Yeah, I don't know about a downfall necessarily. I just wouldn't expect them to be at the top of college football like they've been in recent years. I mean, you look at the recruiting class, they just don't really keep up with teams like in their own conference, Ohio State, Oregon, and then you look on a national scale, the top tier SEC teams like a Texas, like an Alabama, like a Georgia, they just don't consistently bring in the top tier talent. And Harbaugh and staff has done a phenomenal job developing that offensive line to be almost like a factory in recent years. They've been fantastic in developing the players they do get, but over time, there's a reason that Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, these big-time schools get these big-time recruiting classes, and it leads to national championships. It leads to New Year's Six Bowl appearances. It leads to conference championships. So Michigan has had a phenomenal run. Kudos to Harbaugh. Kudos to the whole program. But I think if they lose, this halts a lot of momentum that Harbaugh has started up there in Ann Arbor.
All right, so all 5 of us have Alabama winning the Rose Bowl. Moving on to the Sugar Bowl, number 3, Texas Longhorns versus the undefeated Washington Huskies.
Yeah, so again, this one is really difficult to pick. I'm a really big Penix guy. I love the Huskies. I love the story. But unfortunately, I'm just going to have to take the Texas Longhorns. I think that they just have more talent from top to bottom. And although Penix has won big games, he's beat Oregon twice, he's looked really shaky along the way against some extremely inferior opponents. And I just don't know if this healthy or somewhat healthy Texas Longhorns team is going to be stopped by a mediocre Washington Huskies defense for the national scale. And Michael Penix, who has been phenomenal, but made a lot of costly mistakes in the middle of this year. So I just don't know if I trust Penix, so I'm going to take the Longhorns.
All right, so yeah, Byron Murphy and Alfred Collins in the middle, clogging everything up, and that's the whole script that we've seen so far. The fact that Texas is stopping the run at one of the best rates in the country is what's scaring people from taking Washington in this game. But that's what I just don't get is, oh, we're going to make Washington a one-dimensional team. Like, I mean, it's hard to make LeBron a one-dimensional player. Like, if LeBron was a one-dimensional player, he'd still be really good. So all I'm saying here is this Washington passing attack, which hasn't been healthy whatsoever throughout the entire year, they have all 3 of their guys fully loaded, ready to go. Michael Penix is an elite quarterback, and he can do elite things. And on the other side, Texas has the same thing. What I believe is going to be the X factor for Washington in this game and why they're going to eventually win it is the first 2 quarters, it's just going to be a well-scripted game. Both teams have run a very well-scripted offense. Quinn Ewers is a very scripted quarterback. He has elite talents, but when he's out of, the game script and has to maneuver around and kind of think and work as a quarterback, he is not as elite and he's not as top level because his arm talent isn't transferring. Michael Penix has done a better job of that throughout the season. He's done a better job of winning bad games, winning close games, games that Washington really doesn't deserve to win. I still look back at those Oregon games, watch back at them. I think that Bo Nix outplayed Washington twice. I just think that Washington got ahead and stayed ahead. I think the factor that Dylan Johnson won't be able to run isn't going to be a problem. I think their offense, passing-wise, stays ahead of the game quite often. So I think Penix is going to be able to work on the script. After the halftime, I think Washington's going to be able to elaborate and take a big couple big steps ahead. I think that's when Washington takes over. And Texas, I mean, not really a great team whatsoever. Is just going to fall.
I mean, I'm gonna have to back up Will's original claim. I think Washington's gonna win this game also. I mean, just Michael Penix Jr., Roma Dunze, Jalen Polk, along with this entire offensive line being Joe Moore award-winning individually, I think that they're probably just gonna overpower this Texas defense, ultimately win the game, like you said, in the second half. And this Texas team, to me, they've stopped multiple X Factor players. We saw it in the Oklahoma State game. They actually, no, they didn't stop Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon got injured in that game, but they were doing very good up until that point. But this Texas defense, I just don't think they'll be able to keep up with this Washington offense.
I'm pretty sure before Ollie Gordon got injured, he had like 13 carries for 20 something.
Yeah, I mean the only rusher so far this season to have 100 yards on Texas is Dylan Gabriel. So to put that into like factor is pretty crazy. I get it. Washington probably won't be able to run the ball throughout the whole game. I don't care though. I still think Washington's going to be able to just win a shootout. I like they're going to tear apart this Texas secondary.
Listen, this is the difference between Texas and Washington. Both of them have dynamic offenses. Both of them, have defenses that probably can't stop each other. But who is going to do the better job at stopping the other team? It has to be starting with Texas's D-line. T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, they just clog up the middle, and they're going to make it hard for Penix. They're going to break the pocket pretty early, make Penix think on his feet, make him roll to the outside of the pocket and make some throws, which obviously Penix has been showing he can do all season. But when it comes down to it, I think Penix is going to be in the position where he's going to, make a couple more mistakes because he's going to be under pressure more. It just is what it is. That's what's going to happen. Offensively for Texas, they're just as skilled as Washington. I know there's this narrative that, obviously Penix and Roma Dunze and their whole wide receiver core. I feel like Texas's offense is somewhat underrated, honestly. I mean, I honestly think Texas's wide receiver core, or just receivers in general, maybe equal to or even better than Washington when they're playing at their best. I mean, obviously Washington has the best receiver, like when you compare both teams. But as an overall wide receiver core, Texas has two receivers who could go in the first round. And I think that's just a testament just to show, how well Quinn Ewers has been playing and how well the receivers have been playing in general. There's just no match for the Washington secondary. And obviously you can make the same case for the Texas secondary. But Texas is going to get their run game going, and they're going to be more dimensional and more dynamic when you compare them to Washington. If the passing game isn't working, Texas still has the running game to go to. And the other thing with Texas is that on defense, they can run double safety looks the whole game because they have T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy to clog up the middle. They don't need their safeties coming down to help the run defense. But they have two safeties at all times on those receivers and kind of put a cap on Penix's throwing abilities there. Compare that to Washington's defense. They're going to need their safeties in the box, and they're going to need their safeties there to make sure they could stop the running game against CJ Baxter, Jadon Blue. They just have a three-headed monster back there. And, if it comes down to who's going to score the most, Texas is going to have the most opportunity to score the most just because they're able to, have to change the way the defense is going to have to play throughout the game based on what's working and what doesn't. So,
yeah, and I just want to jump in really quick to bash the Huskies, to be completely honest with you. I don't see how this team is incredibly battle-tested and proven. I mean, you look at their signature wins, real true signature wins, and what jumps out at you is 2-0 versus Oregon. But you look at the Oregon Ducks resume, what have they done other than play Washington close twice? I mean, you're looking up and down. They blasted a atrocious Colorado team. That's really what started them to jump in the rankings, destroying Colorado. And obviously, in hindsight, now we look back and see that Colorado was incredibly fraudulent and was just not a very good football team. And then other than that, I mean, what's their best win? They beat Utah with no quarterback. They beat a really mediocre USC team at home, or they beat Oregon State in Eugene. None of these really jump out to me. They're all mid-level wins. I mean, no doubt solid ranked wins, but nothing jumps out to me to say that Oregon is a great football team. And that's really all that Washington has to hang their hat on in terms of top tier level competition this year. So part of the reason why I'm a little bit scared of Penix and the Huskies is they haven't really played top tier competition like the Longhorns have.
Yeah, I'll quickly do my pick. I also have Texas winning for all the reasons Kev said. It's just, in my opinion, I think this game is going to turn into a shootout with these two dynamic offenses. And in a shootout, you take the slightly or better defense. And I think Texas's defense is definitely better than Washington. That's why I'll be taking them. We'll get a question in for Will. Is there a world where Washington does somehow shut down Texas's explosive offense?
No, I don't think so. With Coach Stark calling plays, you're giving teams a month. They're going to, in the first 2 to 3 drives, score at least 10 to 14 points. They're going to scheme something in. Their offense is too explosive, as Sikes said, for something not to happen right away. It's going to be a very high-scoring game off the bat. I think it's going to settle in. That's when I think Washington's going to jump over. But I think off the bat, it's going to be very explosive and high-scoring. So I don't think Washington – their secondary is not great. They don't stop the run whatsoever. I don't think they'll be able to shut down Texas's offense.
All right, Scatha, you think Ewers can actually lead this team into a victory?
Absolutely. I mean, like, obviously, like, people make the argument that win in Bama was like, you know, it's a different Bama team. But just seeing how Ewers led the team and how he was calm and composed coming into the season, shaved off his mullet. I think from the beginning of the season, he just like completely got into this mindset of, you know, fun's over and it's time to lock in. And he has complete control over the receiving core. He has complete control over the O-line. They all love Ewers and they all protect him very well. And I think it's going to start with which quarterback plays better. And I think Ewers is going to be the quarterback that's going to be playing better just because, you know, him and Coach Sark have really done a lot to build a culture as they've been talking about a lot lately. And Ewers is definitely at the top of that.
All right, while we have you here, let's talk about the future of Texas. Like, what do you see after this year? They said Ewers should be coming back, but what if they win the national championship? Is he still going to come back?
You know, regardless if he comes back or not, I think like all of Texas fans are in a position where they'd love Ewers to come back. People say, oh, Arch is going to leave, this, that. He's not. All the reasons Arch came to Texas are still going to be there regardless of whether Ewers comes back or not. His grandfather, Archie, already said that he doesn't mind Arch sitting a couple years. Arch himself doesn't mind sitting a couple years. He has another year to learn behind possibly the Heisman favorite next year. And then on top of that, you know, I think, you know, with Arch, there's a lot of expectations. And when expectations are really high, it's really easy to disappoint. I think it'll be really good for Arch to get another year. He's still only going to be a redshirt sophomore. It's not like he's going to, you know, be too old to get a couple years in before he goes to the NFL. He'll be completely fine. In terms of the rest of the team, I think I'm really excited. Last year we had a top 3 recruiting class. This year we have a top 3 recruiting class. The problem before was that we were bringing in high-level talent, but, you know, we weren't doing anything with it. But Coach Sark is really, really building something really special here. Obviously, the problems that we're having with the secondary this year completely going to be addressed next year. We're bringing in Andrew Makuba from Clemson, former 4-star. We're bringing in 5-star in Xavier Filsame, and we're also bringing in Kobe Black. Those are both 5-stars right there. And I think, you know, the secondary, which was the only issue, is going to get addressed. Obviously, we're like losing a lot of receivers, but we're bringing in a lot of talent as well. And I think the culture that Sark is building is insane. And like, I think it's something to compare with that of Alabama and Georgia in the future as well.
All right, so that'll be it for the games. We're just going to finally do our early predictions for the national championship. Matt, if you want to do it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think – actually, fortunately and unfortunately – unfortunately for me, being a Buckeye fan, but fortunately for all of college football, I think this is the first year in a while where there wasn't really a clear-cut favorite. So it's going to be an interesting production the whole way through. I think Alabama is going to take it. I just think they're the best team, the hottest team in this group of 4. So I'm going to pick Bama, but I really wouldn't be surprised if any of these teams take home the national championship.
Yeah, same for me. I'm going to ride with Bama. I think if Bama could, beat Michigan, I think they outmatch the other teams in not the Rose Bowl, but they're going to smoke either Washington or Texas, whoever wins out of that. So I think Bama's a clear cut if they make it over Michigan. If not, I think it's up in the air again, as Matt said. So, thankfully, I'm going to say thankfully they didn't let FSU in and Tate Rodemaker. So we have an actual interesting college football playoffs. But I'm just going to leave it there.
Well, I'm a little bit hurt by that comment, but I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm going to stick with Alabama. Definitely, if they make this national championship game and whoever they have to go against, I think they're going to get the job done. But like you said, if they do lose to that Michigan team, I just don't know who would win the national championship in that outcome.
You know where I'm at. I'm going with Texas all the way. I think, after we completely obliterate Washington in a shootout, it's going to be really close. Obviously, probably one of the best offenses in the country versus one of the best defenses in the country, in either Michigan or Alabama. Either way, I feel like we're going to completely outshoot them. And I'm going to go with Texas. I know it might seem biased, but I feel like this is a completely objective take.
Yeah, I'm going to be taking Bama to win it all. Just that win against Georgia just shows me so much on what they can do in this.
You're talking about like the same Bama that almost lost to Auburn, though, right? Like,
but like
they match up well.
They made the playoff. They made the playoff by
they match up well
by a second.
Jalen Milroe is in his prime right now. It's over. And don't get me started with FSU. They barely beat a Louisville team that lost to Kentucky the week before. All right. It was a game that their defense won. I'm not trying to watch, a defensive matchup. I want to see some fireworks on my TV, not just the night before. I want to see some fireworks on January 1st. So that's why I want to see Alabama and Washington in the national championship.
Really quick, I just want to defend, my national championship pick, Alabama. Saketh made the comment they almost lost to Auburn. Texas has had some scary sights recently.
Yeah, when our quarterback was injured.
3-point game to Kansas State and TCU. None of these
with our backup QB.
Michigan, we're talking about really inferior talent. Michigan.
Oh, those are ranked matchups. Not TCU. TCU, don't get me started on that. Obviously, we had our
it's one game. Alabama
Murphy, a freshman. But compare that, like the K-State game, obviously it came down to the last possession. We had our backup QB, and obviously Ewers is the heart and soul of this team. And with no Ewers, you're looking at a completely different team. FSU didn't make the playoff because of their QB situation. So
bro.
Yeah. So if we're gonna make that argument, we'll make the same argument here. Obviously, the QB, the most valuable player on any team.
I don't necessarily agree with the Florida State being left out. I'll just say they gave up 30 to Kansas State. They gave up 26 to TCU.
K-State was a ranked team. They were
very fringe. But my point was just that Texas obviously has not looked flawless throughout this entire season. Michigan was in a dogfight with Rutgers at halftime, although, shout out Rutgers, they just won their ball game. And then Washington on numerous occasions, winning by 7 to Arizona State.
It was raining.
You're completely ignoring
Arizona State as well.
Texas went into Tuscaloosa and beat Bama.
Oh, no doubt about it. I'm just saying the comment of Alabama almost lost to Auburn. I can make that same argument with any team. So you know what? We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on the field. I hope you get a Bama-Texas national championship. That's the real national championship.
Sure.
Yeah, and we will be back for right before the national championship game to give our insight on that, but that'll do it for Joe's Nose College Football Playoff Edition. So for Matt Freeman, Will Kukowski, Zay Lou, thank you, Saketh, and me, Jack Kemmler. Thanks for watching.